The great doors of the Galactic Council chamber opened slowly. Ambassador Tae-ho walked in first, his back straight and his face calm. Behind him came Captain Yuna, Dr. Seok, and Lieutenant Hana. Their footsteps echoed in the massive hall where thousands of alien delegates sat watching them. Tae-ho had waited his whole life for this moment. 50 years ago, humanity had discovered they were not alone in the universe. 50 years of learning, growing, and proving themselves. Today was supposed to be the day when Earth finally became a full member of the Galactic Council. The chamber was enormous. It was shaped like a half circle, with rows of seats rising up toward the ceiling. Each seat held a delegate from a different species. Some had scales, some had fur, some looked like nothing Tae-ho had ever seen before. But they all had one thing in common. They were all looking at the humans with curious eyes. High Arbiter Vaughn sat at the center of the highest platform. He was old, even by alien standards. His skin was gray and wrinkled, and his eyes glowed with a soft blue light. He had led the council for 300 years. His word was law. Tae-ho stopped in the center of the chamber and bowed respectfully. His team did the same. "Ambassador Tae-ho of Earth," Vaughn said. His voice was deep and cold. "You stand before the Galactic Council to receive our judgment on humanity's application for full membership." "I am honored, High Arbiter," Tae-ho replied. Vaughn looked down at a glowing tablet in his hands. "The Council has reviewed Earth's progress over the past 50 years. Your species has shown remarkable growth. Your scientists have made contributions to medicine, energy, and transportation. Your people have maintained peace among yourselves. Your traders have been fair and honest." Tae-ho felt hope rising in his chest. This sounded good. "However," Vaughn continued, and that single word made Tae-ho's hope turn cold, "the Council has decided that humanity is not ready for full membership." A soft murmur spread through the chamber. Tae-ho kept his face still, but inside his heart was sinking. "Humanity will be granted observer status," Vaughn announced. "You may attend council sessions, but you may not vote. Your travel rights will be limited to approved sectors only. Your trade agreements will require council approval. These restrictions will be reviewed in 100 years. 100 years. Tae-ho could hardly believe what he was hearing, so Lieutenant Hana leaned close to him. "Sir, some of the delegates look uncomfortable. Not everyone agrees with this." Tae-ho nodded slightly but said nothing. Dr. Seok stepped forward. He was a quiet man who rarely spoke in public, but his voice was steady now. "High Arbiter, may I ask a question?" Vaughn looked annoyed, but he nodded. "In the past 50 years, human scientists have developed the soul drive, which made travel between galaxies possible for the first time. We have cured 7 diseases that were killing millions across 12 different worlds. We have shared all of this freely. What more must we do to prove ourselves?" Vaughn's eyes narrowed. "Your achievements are noted, Doctor, but humans are still young. Your species is only 200,000 years old. Most council species have existed for millions of years. You are emotional. You are unpredictable. You are not ready." "Not ready," Dr. Seok repeated softly. "I see." Commander Kell, the military leader of the Torak Dominion, laughed from his seat. He was a massive creature covered in dark armor. "The mammals thought they could sit among us as equals. How amusing." Some of the delegates laughed with him. Others remained silent. Captain Yuna's hand moved toward her belt, where her weapon would normally be. But weapons were not allowed in the council chamber. Her jaw was tight with anger. Tae-ho raised his hand slightly, telling his team to stay calm. He looked up at Vaughn with clear eyes. "High Arbiter," he said. "I have one question." Vaughn sighed. "Ask it." "Is this decision final? Is there any possibility of appeal or reconsideration?" Vaughn shook his head. "The council has spoken. The decision is final. You may accept observer status or you may leave. Those are your only choices." The chamber was silent. Every eye was on Tae-ho. For a long moment, he did not move. He thought about the millions of humans back on Earth who were watching this moment through live broadcast. He thought about his daughter, who had asked him that morning if she would be able to visit alien worlds someday. He thought about everything humanity had sacrificed to reach this point. Then he did something that no species had ever done in 4,000 years of Council history. He bowed once more, deeply and respectfully. When he stood up again, his voice was calm and clear. "High Arbiter Vaughn, honored delegates of the Galactic Council, I thank you for your time and consideration. However, Earth cannot accept these terms. We came here seeking partnership, not charity. We came seeking equality, not permission to exist." He paused and looked around the chamber. "Therefore, I am formally withdrawing humanity's application for council membership. Permanently. We will not return. We will not appeal. We will build our own path among the stars." He turned and walked toward the door. His team followed without hesitation. The chamber exploded into chaos. Delegates were shouting, some were laughing, some were calling for the humans to stop. Delegate Mira, a tall woman with silver skin and kind eyes, stood up from her seat. "Ambassador, please wait. Surely we can discuss this further." Tae-ho stopped at the door and looked back at her. His face was sad, but determined. "There is nothing to discuss, Delegate Mira. Your council had a chance to welcome us as friends. Instead, you chose to treat us as children. We do not hate you for this. We simply choose not to need you." He stepped through the door. Elder Solis, the oldest member of the council, watched him go with troubled eyes. She had lived for 10,000 years. She had seen empires rise and fall, and something in her ancient heart told her that the council had just made a terrible mistake. High Arbiter Vaughn raised his hand for silence. "Let them go," he said dismissively. "They will return in a year, begging for another chance. Humans are emotional creatures. They will calm down and see reason." But as the great doors closed behind the human delegation, a strange feeling settled over the chamber. It was the feeling of something ending, something that could never be undone. And somewhere in the back of the room, Commander Kell stopped laughing. 2 weeks passed after the humans walked out of the council chamber. At first, nothing seemed to change. High Arbiter Vaughn told everyone that the humans would come back. He said they were just being dramatic. He said they needed the council more than the council needed them. He was wrong. The first sign of trouble came from the Valen homeworld. Delegate Mira stood in her office, staring at a report on her screen with growing horror. 3 of her colony worlds depended on water purification systems designed by human engineers. Those engineers had left yesterday. They had packed their bags, smiled politely, and boarded ships heading back to Earth. "But surely they left instructions," Mira asked her assistant. Surely someone else can operate the machines." Her assistant shook his head. "The systems are too complex, Delegate. Our technicians cannot understand them. They say the human designs are unlike anything they have ever seen." Mira sat down heavily in her chair. Without clean water, those colonies would begin dying within months. She was not the only one receiving bad news. Across the galaxy, human scientists were packing up their research labs. Human doctors were closing their clinics. Human teachers were saying goodbye to their students. Human workers were boarding transport ships by the thousands, all heading in the same direction: home. The humans were not angry. They were not rude. They simply said thank you and left. That was somehow worse than if they had been hostile. On the border stations of the Torak Dominion, the Commander Kell was having a very bad day. His most advanced defense platforms had been built using human technology. Human engineers had helped design them and had stayed to maintain them. Now those engineers were gone, and the platforms were showing error messages that no one could read. "What do you mean you cannot fix them?" Kel roared at his technicians. "The programming language is human, Commander," a nervous technician explained. "We do not have anyone who speaks it fluently. The humans offered to teach us, but we refused. We said we did not need lessons from mammals." Kel smashed his fist against the wall. The metal bent under his strength, but it did not make him feel better. Meanwhile, on Earth, Captain Yuna stood on a platform overlooking the construction of new orbital defense stations. The massive machines floated in the darkness of space, welding metal and laying down armor plating. It was beautiful in a dangerous way. Admiral Daewon walked up beside her. He was an older man with gray hair and hard eyes. He had fought in Earth's last war decades ago against pirates who thought humans would be easy targets. Those pirates did not exist anymore. "Do you think they will attack us?" Daewon asked. Yuna shook her head. "No, they are too busy fighting each other. Besides, they do not know what we can do. We have never shown them our true military strength." "And the Council? Do you think they will try to force us back?" Yuna smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Let them try. We have spent 50 years being polite and helpful. We have given them medicine, technology, and peace, and they repaid us with insults. And now they will learn what happens when humans stop being generous." Back on Nexus Station, the Council was meeting again, but this time the mood was very different. Delegate Mira spoke first. "My people are facing a crisis. We need human help, but they will not return our messages. They are not hostile. They simply say they are no longer available." Elder Solus nodded slowly. "The same is happening across many worlds. Human trade ships have stopped coming. Human medical teams have gone home. Human technology is failing because we do not know how to maintain it." "This is ridiculous," Commander Kel growled. "They are just one species. How can they cause so much damage by leaving?" "Because we let them become essential," Solus replied quietly. "We accepted their help for 50 years without ever learning to do things ourselves. We thought they were useful servants. We never realized they were holding everything together." High Arbiter Vaughn raised his hand for silence. "This is temporary. The humans are making a point. Once they realize they cannot survive without Council trade routes and protection, they will return." But even as he spoke, a new report appeared on his screen. Earth had just announced the creation of something called the Sol Network. It was a new trade alliance, separate from the Council. Several minor species had already joined. Vaughn stared at the report. His hands began to shake. "They are building their own system," he whispered. "They are replacing us." On a small farming world at the edge of Council space, a young alien girl watched a human cargo ship flying overhead. It was heading toward Earth, loaded with goods from species who had decided to trade directly with the humans. "Mother, why are the humans leaving?" the girl asked. Her mother looked up at the sky with sad eyes. "Because we were not kind to them, child. And now they do not need us anymore." In his office on Earth, Ambassador Tae-ho sat quietly, reading reports from across the galaxy. Dr. Siok stood nearby, a tablet in his hands. "Our departure is causing more damage than we expected," Siok said. "Many worlds are struggling. Some may face serious crises." Tae-ho closed his eyes. "I know, and it troubles me. We did not leave to hurt anyone. Should we offer help?" Tae-ho thought for a long moment. "No, not yet. If we help them now, nothing will change. They will take our aid and continue to treat us as inferiors. They need to understand that we are not servants. We are not children. We are equals, or we are nothing." Lieutenant Hana entered the room with an urgent message. "Ambassador, we have intercepted a Council transmission. They are calling an emergency session to discuss what they are calling the human problem." Tae-ho opened his eyes. There was no anger in them, only calm determination. "The human problem," he repeated. "How interesting. For 4,000 years, the Council has decided who matters and who does not. They never imagined that someone would simply walk away and build something better. He stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the sun was setting over the city of Seoul. Children were playing in the streets below. Workers were heading home to their families. Life was going on, peaceful and normal. So let them have their emergency session, Tae-ho said. We have nothing more to say to them, but when they are ready to speak to us as equals, we will be here, waiting, building, growing. He turned back to his team. His voice was quiet but full of certainty. And then they will see what humanity can truly become. 3 months had passed since the humans walked away from the Galactic Council. In that short time, everything had changed. On a small moon called Veth 4, 2 species were at war. The Krill and the Marnock had fought over this moon for centuries. But 20 years ago, human mediators had helped them sign a peace agreement. Human peacekeepers had stayed to make sure both sides followed the rules. Human teachers had built schools where Krill and Marnock children learned together. Now, the humans were gone. And the old hatred was coming back. Delegate Mira watched the news reports with tears in her eyes. Villages were burning, families were fleeing. The peace that had lasted 20 years was dying in a single night. "Can the Council send mediators?" she asked desperately. Her assistant shook his head. "We tried. Both sides refused. They said Council mediators are biased and arrogant. They said only the humans knew how to listen to both sides fairly." "Then contact Earth. Beg them to send help." "We did, Delegate. The humans said they are sorry, but they are no longer involved in Council affairs. They wished both sides peace and ended the transmission." Mira put her head in her hands. She had voted against giving humans full membership. She had thought they were too young, too emotional. And now she understood that she had been the foolish one. Far across the galaxy, Commander Kell was facing his own disaster. 3 of his border stations had gone completely dark. The human-designed defense systems had finally failed, and without them, the stations were defenseless. "We must attack Earth," Kell demanded at a military meeting. "We must force them to give us their technology." His generals looked at each other nervously. "Commander," one of them said carefully, "we do not know if we can defeat Earth. We have never seen their full military power. We only know what happened to the Draven Raiders." Kell slammed his fist on the table. "The Draven were pirates. We are the Torak Dominion. We have conquered 100 worlds." "The Draven had 200 warships, Commander. They attacked a human colony convoy 10 years ago. Within 6 hours, every single Draven ship was destroyed. Not captured, not disabled. Destroyed. The humans never even asked for help. They handled it alone. That proves nothing. With respect, Commander, it proves that we do not know what we are dealing with. The humans have been peaceful and helpful for 50 years, but we have no idea what they are capable of when they are not being peaceful." Kell fell silent. For the first time in his long military career, he felt something he had never felt before. Doubt. On Earth, life continued as normal, but beneath the surface, great things were happening. Dr. Seok stood in a laboratory filled with glowing machines and holographic displays. His team had been working day and night for months, and today they had finally succeeded. "It is ready," he announced quietly. So Ambassador Tae-ho and Admiral Dae-won stood beside him, looking at a small device on the table. It looked simple, just a metal cube with lights on its surface. But it was anything but simple. "This is the Soul Relay," Seok explained. "It allows instant communication across any distance. No delays, no interference, no need for the Council's relay network." Tae-ho picked up the cube carefully. "How many can we produce?" "As many as we need. The design is simple once you understand the principles." Dae-won grinned. "The Council charges enormous fees to use their communication network. If we give this away for free, we will break their monopoly completely. We will not give it away, Taeho said. We will share it with species who ask for our friendship. Those who treat us as equals will receive our help, but those who continue to follow the council will not. That same week, the first Soul Relay was delivered to the Valen home world. Delegate Mira received it personally, her silver hands trembling as she held the small device. "Why are you giving this to us?" she asked the human delivery pilot. "Our council voted against you." The pilot, a young woman named Gia, smiled kindly. "You voted the way you were told to vote, Delegate. We do not hold that against you. Besides, you sent us a private message last month. You apologized. You asked if we could still be friends." Mira's eyes filled with tears. "I did not think you would answer." "We always answer friends, Delegate. The Soul Network is not about politics or power. It is about connection. It is about helping each other." Back on Nexus Station, the High Arbiter Vaughn was receiving very disturbing reports. 12 species had quietly left the Council and joined the Soul Network. 20 more were considering it. Trade was falling. Revenue was dropping. The Council's influence was shrinking every day. "This cannot be happening," Vaughn muttered, staring at the numbers on his screen. "We have ruled this galaxy for 4,000 years. We cannot be undone by one stubborn species." Elder Solus sat in the corner of his office, watching him with ancient eyes. "Perhaps that is the problem, Arbiter. We have ruled. We have judged. We have decided who is worthy and who is not. But we have never listened. We have never treated anyone as our equal." "The humans were inferior," Vaughn insisted. "Ha, they are barely 200,000 years old. And yet they accomplished in 50 years what most of our species could not accomplish in 5,000. Perhaps age is not the same as wisdom, Arbiter." Vaughn glared at her. "What are you suggesting?" "I am suggesting that we made a mistake, a terrible mistake, and if we do not fix it soon, there will be no council left to lead." Lieutenant Hana intercepted the transmission that night. She brought it directly to Ambassador Taeho, her face serious. "The council is calling an emergency meeting," she reported. "Full attendance. Mandatory. They are going to discuss how to deal with us." Taeho read the transmission carefully. "They are calling it the human problem," he said softly. "Should we be worried, sir?" Taeho looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, the frightened aliens were trying to figure out how to force humanity back under their control. They were scared and confused and angry, but they were not evil. They were just lost. "No," he said finally. "We should not be worried. We should be patient. They are not our enemies. They are just learning a lesson that humanity learned long ago." "What lesson is that, sir?" Taeho smiled sadly. "That you cannot force someone to respect you. You can only earn it, and the first step to earning respect is giving it." He turned back to his work. Outside, Earth's new defense platforms glittered in the darkness of space, ready for anything but hoping for peace. The galaxy was changing, and humanity was leading the way. The Galactic Council chamber had never been so full. Every seat was taken. Every species was represented. Or for the first time in 300 years, attendance was not optional. High Arbiter Vaughn had demanded that everyone come. The future of the Council depended on this meeting. Vaughn stood at the center of the highest platform, looking down at the thousands of delegates below him. His face was hard, but his hands were shaking slightly. He had not slept in 3 days. "Delegates of the Galactic Council," he began, his voice echoing through the massive chamber. "We face a crisis unlike any in our 4,000-year history. The humans have not only rejected our authority, they are actively replacing us." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Everyone had seen the reports. Everyone knew what was happening. "The Soul Network now includes 37 species," Vaughn continued. "Their new communication technology makes our relay system worthless. Their trade agreements are more generous than ours. Their scientists are sharing discoveries freely while we charge fees and restrict access. Commander Kell stood up from his seat. His armor gleamed under the lights. "Then we attack," he declared loudly. "We send our fleets to Earth. We blockade their system. We starve them until they surrender." Several delegates nodded in agreement. Others looked uncertain. Elder Solus raised her thin hand. She was the oldest being in the room, perhaps the oldest being in the galaxy. When she spoke, everyone listened. "Commander Kell, you speak of attacking Earth as if it were easy. May I remind you of the Draven incident?" Kell made a dismissive noise. "The Draven were primitive raiders. We are the greatest military power in the galaxy." "The Draven had 200 warships," Solus said calmly. "They attacked a human convoy carrying families and children. The humans sent a response fleet. 6 hours later, the Draven did not exist. Not their ships, not their stations, not their home world." The chamber fell silent. "We searched for survivors," Solus continued. "We found none. We searched for records of what happened. We found none. The humans simply said that the matter had been handled, and they did not wish to discuss it further." Kell sat down slowly. His face was troubled. "My point," Solus said, "is that we have never seen what humans can do when they are truly angry. For 50 years, they have been helpful and kind. They have healed our sick and taught our children. But we do not know what is behind that kindness, and I suggest we do not wish to find out." Delegate Mira stood up, and her silver skin caught the light as she moved. "There is another option," she said. "We could simply ask them to return." Laughter erupted from several sections of the chamber. "Ask them?" someone shouted. "They walked out on us. They insulted the council." "No," Mira said firmly. "We insulted them. We told them they were too young and too emotional to sit with us as equals. We were wrong. And if we cannot admit that, then we deserve to watch our council crumble." The chamber erupted into angry arguments. Delegates were shouting at each other. Some were demanding war. Others were demanding negotiation. A few were quietly calculating whether they should leave the council and join the Soul Network. Vaughn raised his hand for silence. It took a long time for the noise to die down. "Delegate Mira," he said coldly, "you speak of asking the humans to return. Have you been in contact with them?" Mira lifted her chin proudly. "Yes, I have. I sent Ambassador Tae-ho a personal message 2 months ago. I apologized for my vote. I asked if there was any hope for friendship. And what did he say? He said that humanity was not angry with us. He said they did not leave because they hated us. They left because they refused to accept disrespect. He said that if the council ever wished to speak with them as equals, Earth would listen." "As equals?" Vaughn repeated. The word seemed bitter in his mouth. "Yes, Arbiter, as equals. Not as superiors and inferiors, not as masters and servants, as equals." Vaughn looked around the chamber. He saw fear in many eyes, fear of the humans, fear of change, fear of admitting that the council had been wrong. But he also saw something else. He saw species quietly whispering to each other. He saw delegates who had once been loyal now looking toward the exit. He saw the slow collapse of everything he had worked his entire life to build. For the first time, Vaughn understood. The council had never been about cooperation or fairness. It had been about power, about keeping some species above others, about maintaining control. And the humans had seen through that lie from the very beginning. "What exactly do they want?" Vaughn asked quietly. Mira took a deep breath. "They are offering something called the Soul Compact. It is a new kind of alliance. There are no membership fees. There is no hierarchy. Every species has an equal voice, regardless of age or power. Decisions are made together, not imposed from above." "That is chaos," Kell said. "That cannot work." "It is already working," Mira replied. 37 species have joined. Conflicts between member species have dropped to almost zero. Trade is increasing. Science is advancing faster than ever before. The Sol Compact is everything the Council promised to be but never was. The chamber was silent. Every delegate was thinking the same thing. What if the humans were right? What if there was a better way? Vaughn closed his eyes. He had ruled the Council for 300 years. He had believed that his way was the only way. Now he stood in a crumbling empire, watching his power slip away like water through his fingers. When he opened his eyes again, something had changed in them. The arrogance was gone. The certainty was gone. All that remained was a tired old being who had finally realized his mistakes. "I will go to Earth," he announced. "Personally. I will speak with Ambassador Tae-ho. I will ask, not demand, that we begin a new dialogue." Kel jumped to his feet. "You cannot. You are the High Arbiter. They should come to you." "Perhaps," Vaughn said, "but they will not. And if I wish to save what remains of this council, I must swallow my pride and go to them." He looked at Elder Solus. "Will you accompany me?" Solus smiled. It was a small, sad smile. "I would be honored, Arbiter. Perhaps it is time for me to learn something new." The meeting ended without a clear decision. Some delegates supported Vaughn's plan. Others condemned it. But it did not matter anymore. The Council's power was already gone. All that remained was the choice between graceful acceptance and bitter decline. That night, a small ship left Nexus Station and headed toward Earth. On board were High Arbiter Vaughn, Elder Solus, and a handful of aides. No warships accompanied them. No demands were prepared. They were going to Earth not as rulers, but as guests. And somewhere in the darkness of space, Ambassador Tae-ho received word of their approach. He smiled softly and ordered tea to be prepared. The time for talking had finally come. The small council ship descended through Earth's atmosphere, passing through white clouds and blue sky. High Arbiter Vaughn sat by the window, watching the planet grow larger below him. He had seen thousands of worlds in his long life, but Earth was different. "It is beautiful," Elder Solus said softly from the seat beside him. Vaughn nodded. He had expected a fortress world, covered in weapons and military bases. Instead, he saw green forests, blue oceans, and cities that sparkled in the sunlight. It looked peaceful. It looked like home. Their ship landed at a small spaceport outside Seoul. No military guards waited for them. No officials with angry faces. Just a young woman in simple clothes, holding a tablet and smiling warmly. "Welcome to Earth," she said. "I am Gia. I will take you to Ambassador Tae-ho." Vaughn had expected to be taken to a government building, something grand and impressive. Instead, Gia led them through ordinary streets. They passed shops and restaurants. They saw children playing in parks. They heard music coming from open windows. People looked at them curiously, but without fear. Some even waved. A little boy ran up to Elder Solus and offered her a flower. She took it gently, her ancient eyes filling with tears. "Oh, why are they not afraid of us?" Vaughn asked Gia. Gia shrugged. "Why would they be afraid? You are guests. Besides, humans have learned that most beings in the universe are not so different from us. We all want the same things: safety, happiness, love." They arrived at a simple building with a garden in front. Ambassador Tae-ho waited at the door. He was dressed in casual clothes, not formal robes. He bowed politely and gestured for them to enter. "Thank you for coming, High Arbiter," he said. "I know this was not easy for you." Vaughn's pride wanted to say something cold and dignified, but he was tired of pride. He was tired of pretending. "Thank you for receiving us," he said instead. "We did not deserve your welcome." Tae-ho led them to a small room with comfortable chairs and a low table. Tea was waiting for them, the steam rising from delicate cups. Captain Yuna stood by the window, watching the garden outside. Dr. Siok sat in the corner, reading from a tablet. Lieutenant Hana poured the tea. It felt nothing like a diplomatic meeting. It felt like visiting someone's home. Vaughn sat down awkwardly. He had negotiated with emperors and warlords. He had commanded fleets and shaped the fate of entire civilizations. But he did not know how to be a guest. "I must ask," he began, "what would it take for humanity to return to the Council?" Taeho sipped his tea calmly. "We are not returning to your council, Arbiter." Vaughn felt his heart sink. "Then this meeting is pointless." "No. This meeting is the beginning." Taeho set down his cup. "We are not returning to the council because the council was built on a lie. It claimed to represent all species. But it truly served only the oldest and most powerful. It claimed to promote peace, but it really enforced control. And your Soul Compact is different? Yes. In the Compact, every species has an equal voice. There are no membership fees, no restricted access, no hierarchies based on age or power. We make decisions together, or we do not make them at all." Elder Solus leaned forward. "That sounds idealistic, Ambassador. How can such a system work in practice? What happens when species disagree?" "We talk," Taeho said simply. "We listen. We compromise. Sometimes we agree to disagree. But we never tell any species that their voice does not matter because they are too young or too small." Captain Yuna spoke from the window without turning around. "And if someone breaks the peace? If someone attacks another member? Then they face consequences. We are not pacifists, Captain Yuna reminds us of that often. But we believe that war should be the last choice, not the first." Vaughn was quiet for a long moment. Everything Taeho said made sense. It was simple and fair and honest. So why did it make him feel so uncomfortable? Because it meant admitting that everything Vaughn had believed was wrong. It meant admitting that the Council, his life's work, had been a mistake. "What happens to the Council?" he asked finally. "If your compact succeeds, what happens to us?" Taeho's eyes softened. "That depends on you, Arbiter. The Council can continue as it is, growing smaller and weaker every year. Or it can change. It can become something new. You would allow Council members to join the compact?" "Of course." "The door is open to everyone. We do not hold grudges. We do not seek revenge. We simply want to build something better." Elder Solus reached into her robes and pulled out a small metal object. It was her council sigil, the symbol of her position as the oldest and most respected member of the council. She placed it on the table. "I have worn this for 10,000 years," she said quietly. "It represents everything the council claims to be: wisdom, justice, order." She looked at Taeho with clear eyes. "But I think your way is wiser. I would like to learn more about this compact." Vaughn stared at her. "Solus, what are you doing?" "I am choosing a different path, Arbiter. The Council has been my home for millennia, but homes can become prisons if we are afraid to leave them." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Taeho stood and walked to Elder Solus. He picked up the sigil and placed it back in her hands. "Keep this," he said gently. "Your history is part of who you are. The compact does not ask you to forget your past. It only asks you to help build a better future." Solus held the sigil tightly, tears running down her ancient face. Vaughn watched this exchange with mixed emotions. Part of him wanted to argue, to fight, to defend the council he had served for so long. But a larger part of him was simply tired. "Ambassador," he said slowly, "I do not know if I can change. I have been who I am for 300 years. Taeho smiled. "No one changes overnight, Arbiter, but the first step is simply being willing to try." That evening, Ambassador Taeho sent a message across the galaxy. His voice was calm and warm. carried by the sole relay network to every world that had chosen to listen. To all species who dream of something better, he said, Earth welcomes you, not as subjects, not as inferiors, as partners, as equals, as friends. The stars are vast enough for all of us. Let us explore them together. Across the galaxy, beings of every shape and size heard his words. Some dismissed them as propaganda. Some were suspicious and afraid, but many, so many, felt hope stirring in their hearts. On a farming world at the edge of council space, a young alien girl looked up at the stars and smiled. On a Torak border station, a technician quietly began studying human language. On Nexus Station, delegates whispered to each other about possibilities they had never dared to imagine. And on Earth, High Arbiter Vaughn stood in the garden outside Teho's home, looking up at the night sky. Somewhere out there, ships were already turning towards Sol. The old order was ending. The new order was beginning. He did not know what the future would hold. He did not know if the compact would succeed or fail, but for the first time in 300 years, he felt something he had forgotten he could feel. Hope. Behind him, Elder Solus joined him in the garden. She said nothing. She simply stood beside him, two ancient beings watching the stars together. Tomorrow, they would begin the long work of building a new galaxy. But tonight, they simply stood in peace, grateful for the chance to try. And far above them, the first ships of the new alliance crossed paths in the darkness, at their lights blinking greetings to each other as they sailed toward a future that belonged to everyone. The humans had not conquered the galaxy. They had not forced anyone to follow them. They had simply shown that there was another way, a better way. And in the end, that was enough.